I'd like to welcome everybody who's joining us. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Wheaton Conversation if you've never been here before. We are having a conversation with Danielle Cartier, Alissa Eberle, and Eve Hoyt. As you may know, I'm Pamela Weichman. I'm your host and the Director of Education and Artist Services at WheatonArts. I'm a white female in my 30s with long brown hair and blue eyes, and I'm wearing a brown sweater. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm broadcasting from southern New Jersey, which I recognize as traditionally the land of the Lenni Lenape. Wheaton Conversations is presented by PNC Arts Alive, the United Nations International Year of Glass, and the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass. We thank them for their support. Through membership, donations, and shop at shop.wheatonarts.org, you can show your support. Please consider exploring these options so we can continue to offer free programs such as these. It is my pleasure to introduce the co-host for this program, Alex Rosenberg. Alex is a Philadelphia-based artist, educator, and writer. He is currently the director of the Glass Studio here at WheatonArts. Alex, thank you so much for joining us and for leading our conversation.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for showing up, and especially thanks to Eve, Alissa, and Danielle for joining us tonight. I'm, I guess, personally becoming very interested in neon art specifically, or neon as an artistic medium over the last couple of years. So I'm just really interested in what they have to say. Danielle, the gallery these are basically our neighbors in Millville, so it's exciting. It's always exciting to have guests from all over, but it's, I think, especially exciting to kind of connect with this local community. So I'm going to hand it over to them and let them talk about their respective artistic practices. I also wanted to mention that there is a show opening at the gallery, Double Vision, opening on April 19th, and Alissa and Eve will be demoing at Eco Fair. So if you're interested in learning more about what they do and seeing it in action, that will be a chance to do so. I'm gonna pass it over and let you guys tell us more about what you do.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so excited to be able to speak to everyone. My name is Danielle Cartier. I am an artist. I am a muralist. I am a professor of art at Stockton University and Rowan University here in Southern New Jersey. And I am the owner and curator of DC Gallery and Studio here in Southern New Jersey in Millville. I am coming to you from the gallery, from my studio portion of the gallery. And just to get started, I would love to tell you a little bit about the gallery itself here in Millville. So DC Gallery and Studio is a female-owned art gallery, maker retail space, and studio featuring contemporary art in a wide variety of media by local artists that are both emerging and established. So as an artist, I have done a lot of different projects here, but the first project I would like to show you all is a project I completed most recently. As a visual artist, I am also very interested in public art. And last summer, I had an opportunity to create a large-scale public art mural in downtown Millville on High Street. So these are some studio shots of me working on the mural. It was completed on a series of 8 panels. And the imagery is based upon the Morris River here in Millville. The panels were installed through the help of with the help of the city, and I painted the entire project in the studio. And this is something I'm really proud of because it is one of the first projects I was able to really connect with Millville and do something with the city public art wise. So this is one kind of element of my practice. Yeah, and it was really great to install the work. And you can see it right now in the Riverfront Renaissance Center Plaza on High Street. Oh, there is a large scale version. So as I mentioned, the imagery is based upon a photograph I took of the Morris River. I layered all different types of paint brushes, paint strokes, mark making, and it took me a period of 5 months to paint it in my studio. And it was really thrilling to be able to put the panels together to form this final mural and this final image. This is also another project I completed last year. I created a jersey for gender equality for the New Jersey Devils. This was a really fun project and kind of completely unexpected. I kind of applied for this opportunity off of a whim and was really thrilled to get it and represent kind of females and all genders in hockey and in that realm. And this piece was actually based upon a mixed media painting. My personal artwork, I would say I do public art murals and large scale mixed media paintings. So it was really fun to be able to take a mixed media painting and transition it into a digital design and then into a actual design for a functional hockey jersey. And the players wore this jersey and they were auctioned off for gender equality causes and organizations. So it was a really fun project. And it was really cool to see my work on the big screen in the stadium. I've never seen my work on that scale before, and that was really thrilling. So here we have some pictures of exhibitions from the gallery space here in Millville, right next to me. It has been really thrilling to organize exhibitions of local artists. I have been focusing on female artists from the South Jersey and Philadelphia area within the past 2 years. And it has been very exciting to bring new artists in the space, to connect with other local artists whose work I really admire and love, like Eve and Alissa, and be able to showcase them and give them a place to see their artwork, other people to see their artwork, and really to create an even more of an arts hub here in South Jersey. So it's really been spectacular. These are all interior shots of the gallery of various 3 different exhibitions from 2023. Okay, again, a few more installation shots from inside of the gallery. The gallery has a retail space in the front where we feature smaller artworks, handmade artworks from local artists, and then more of an exhibition, normal gallery space in the back. I would love for all of you who are local to South Jersey to come and stop by, especially because Eve and Alissa will be having an exhibition here at the gallery in April and May 2024. So just a few more pictures of the gallery space from the outside, and some events we participated in this year, whether it was the Millville Car Show or openings or exhibitions at the gallery space. It's been really great to also connect with local teens and youth in this space. One of the things we do here, other than host exhibitions, is have workshops, free workshops for all ages and experience levels, either in the gallery space or the studio space here. So, and as a teacher, that's something I really, care about, education. So, of course, one of the things I must talk about is Third Fridays in Millville. Those in the South Jersey area, I must invite you to Third Fridays in Millville. This month for Third Friday, we have an opening tomorrow here at DC Gallery and Studio of Encuentro. That is Doris Noriega Rogers and Marta Sanchez. Their exhibition opens tomorrow evening. So if you are local, I would love for you to stop by. And that is tomorrow from 6 to 8 right here at DC Gallery and Studio on High Street in Millville. Yeah. And then I'd love to talk about Eve and Alissa's exhibition in the next slide, please. All right. And then Eve and Alyssa's exhibition opens here at DC Gallery and Studio on April 19th. So they are both going to be sharing new neon works. I'm really thrilled to be able to share their work. And I became acquainted with their artwork from two different exhibitions in South Jersey within the past year. I saw Eve's work with the Philadelphia Dumpster Divers at Perkins Center for the Arts, and I thought it was so cool. I think neon is really a medium that me personally, I have a lot of interest in. And I thought I've just been very inspired to see two females working in neon in such different and drastic ways. And Alyssa's work I saw through the Atlantic City Arts Foundation's Arteriors, which is a creative placemaking project that happens in Atlantic City. And she did an amazing neon exhibition that took up the entire space, was really outstanding and immersive. So yeah, it's really great to be able to showcase their work together. And I would love for everyone tuned in tonight that can make it to their exhibition to please plan a trip to come out to the gallery to see their work here in South Jersey in April and May. And one other thing they are going to be doing, which is very, very exciting, I am thrilled that we are able to all work together and partner together with Wheaton to be able to present to you a neon demonstration by Eve and Alissa at the Glass Studio. So where the amazing furnace is at WheatonArts, they're going to be doing a neon workshop and demo all day during the Eco Fair at WheatonArts, which is Saturday, May 4th, 2024 from 10 to 4. So, you know, if you can make it to that event, the Eco Fair, that's an awesome event. We would all love to have you stop by that as well.
I guess I'm up next. So, well, I'm really happy to be here this evening and talk a little bit about my artwork. So, my name is Eve Hoyt, and I'm based outside of Philadelphia in Glenside. And I make neon art and also do custom neon projects, maybe a restoration or two. And I also offer workshops in my studio. So I thought I would talk about how I started in neon. That's a question that I get asked often. So here I am in 1989 when I was 21, and I really wanted to learn how to make neon signs. I just noticed them and thought they were so cool. So I reached out to some sign shops to ask if they would hire me and teach me, and they all said no. Neon has a pretty long learning curve, and so sign shops usually aren't willing to just take somebody in off the street. They want to know that you're somewhat committed. So I was living in Maryland at the time. That's where I grew up, and I managed to find Haley Ryan, she had just her own neon shop, worked by herself, and approached her and asked her if she would consider teaching me. I mean, there were neon schools around at that time in the late 80s, but none close to me, and I didn't really have the resources to go travel. So she agreed and, structured a course, and I took that. It was 12 weeks. And then I went back to, called back some of the sign shops, and one of them hired me. And so I worked for about 5 years at a couple different shops in Maryland. And then I relocated in 94 up to this area and continued to work at some wholesale shops and did a little freelance vending and, honed my skills. So then in 2001, I opened up my own studio. So here it is, and it's at my residence, actually at my home. That was one thing. My husband and I were looking for a house, and it absolutely had to have a place where I could put a neon shop. So we finally found one. And so my neon shop is up on the second floor of the garage, which, we gutted it and kind of, started fresh, new studs, drywall. So those are just a couple pictures, the staircase going up to my shop. And then the other picture is my house. So I have a nice short little commute, which I'm very grateful for. So these are just, so it's inside my studio, and just, yeah, I spend a lot of time here because it's my work, but it's also my hobby. And so what you're looking at is my bending bench and my neon torches on the left side. And on the right side is the table for processing neon tubes. So here's some more shots of my studio with some of my artwork on and lit up. And people always love the clouds on my ceiling, which I needed lights. So I thought, oh, I know somebody who can make lights. And I made clouds. And then below that in the picture is my color board. And that's also like a favorite, that when people come to my studio, they like to see that lit up. So this, when I set up my shop, that was a real exciting time for me, because after working and making signs for so long, I really just wanted a chance to, make neon in a relaxed environment where I wasn't having to produce a bunch of tubes every day, under the scrutiny of, the boss, and not do letters or really anything that even resembled a sign. So I spent a lot of time just kind of playing around in the fires and experimenting, and started making these 3D sculptures. And it was a lot of a lot of splicing and color changes and sort of twisting and turning of the glass, just free form. When you work making signs, you're usually conforming it to a pattern, and this was a chance to just sort of play around and do different things. So these are just some close-ups of some of the things I was doing. I was inspired by some lamp working techniques. I took a few workshops just to sort of get exposed to some different ways of working with glass. And so here is taking colored stringers of glass and melting them to the tube and then blowing them out in a little bubble. And a lot of the pieces I was doing at that time were like this. I was, wanting to present the tube itself as the piece of art. And so just trying to do something different than what I had seen done with neon. So one thing that really influenced my early pieces was using this torch. This is a jeweler's torch. And they aren't real typical in neon shops. I had never seen one until I moved up to the Philly area and had worked in, a few shops. And I think it might be more of a regional torch. I worked in shops in New Jersey and Delaware, and they had these, but not in Maryland. And the way that it's different is it uses oxygen, which typically with neon torches, you're just using, gas and then an air source, an air blower. But I had to learn how to use this because the shop where I worked, which is actually where Alissa works now, Urban Neon, they did not have the traditional hand torch that I was used to that has a flame coming out, opposite sides. So, and I love this torch, and I love the traditional torch. I like having options. So, this torch, it's just a single flame, and I was, started experimenting with blowing holes in the tube and then filling in the hole with colored tubing and blowing it out into a bubble. So what you're looking at on the right is I'm attaching a mercury trap to a unit that I'm getting ready to process. So here is some examples of what I was doing. I named these glowing bubbles, and they were kind of a trademark of the tubes that and the pieces that I was making at that time. And yeah, it's just blowing a hole in the tube and then painting it back in with glass, basically, and blowing it out. And they're time consuming, and these pieces were, they're fragile and they would take a long time to make. And if you work with glass, you know how it goes. If you can work on something for several hours, and then in a matter of minutes, something cracks or breaks, and you're starting over again. And with these pieces, actually, let's see the next slide. Yeah, so here's some more examples, and they're free form and three-dimensional. And so, if something broke and, I had to start over, with neon, with letters and different stuff that you're working, it's more two-dimensional to a table. If you make a mistake, you can often just cut out the bad section and then splice, new glass in and redo it. But I couldn't really do it with these. So these are, I was also doing these pieces, but I did some that were flat like these. And I was actually mounting the tubes on panels of stained glass. I liked the idea of neon with stained glass. So I was mounting the tubes on the stained glass. And then also, like you can see in the middle piece, there's a part where I covered over top of a section of the tube with a piece of stained glass. And then on the right, that little swirly piece is actually behind. And there's translucent, like purple glass in front of it, that you can see through, that shows the neon. But those pieces, I have to drill holes in the glass for the tube supports. And that was a pain, and sometimes would take me like 30 minutes just to drill a hole. And so I didn't do a whole lot like that. I hadn't discovered E6000 at that point, which is a glue that I use a lot of now when I'm doing my found object pieces. But so that's kind of how I started making artwork in the kind of pieces that I was making. So around 2011, I started using found objects in my work, and I still do that very much. I think I always knew I wanted to use found objects, but just never, just didn't get around to it. And so the piece with the heart and the doll face in the corner, that was the first piece I made where I incorporated neon with found objects. And that piece is called Toys I Loved, and it's just a tribute to some of my favorite toys as a child. So if you grew up in the 70s or 80s, like I did, you might recognize some of those. And, I really enjoy incorporating the found objects. And sometimes I'm just taking a larger object like the mannequin legs and just adding neon to it, or using it as just one element, or using the neon as one part of the larger piece, and then lots of found objects in with it. Like the devil piece in the center, the box that's in is actually a wine rack that I just repurposed. Thought would make a good base for a piece. So
Eve, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just really quick, we're getting a question about the scale of those other works. Is there any way you could quickly
Sure.
share that?
The ones on the previous slide, the found object pieces?
Yeah.
You mean like how big are they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so they're pretty small. Most of the pieces I make are, they're usually not bigger than 2 feet by 2 feet, and often even smaller than that. I like my pieces to be manageable, easy to hang on the wall, very self-contained. So yeah, they're generally, 24 by 24 inches or smaller. So I'm a collector of things. Like, I've always loved flea markets, and I like old things, weird things, rusty things, things where you pick it up and you're like, what is this? What was this? Is this an old tool? You know, what was this for? So my friend Peter gave me this great desk. So, you know, I pick things up, and I like to have them where I can see them, because I just like to admire them. But they also inspire a lot of the pieces I make. And sometimes I'll get something and I'll have it for a while, and I'm like, I'm going to use this in a piece. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I definitely, you know, I'm going to use this. So that's what you're looking at here, is just some of the different things in my shop that I collect and that inspire me. So these are my 3 favorite found object pieces so far that I've made that incorporate neon with found objects. And I love the puzzle of figuring out how I'm gonna incorporate the neon with what I'm doing and present it in a way where it looks clean. It's, you know, the neon and all the parts are secured together well. But if I ever have to fix it, you know, I want to be able to access everything. So I glue things together, but I don't want to have to destroy them, like if the transformer burns out, or, you know, if a piece of neon were to break. But these pieces, you know, what I like about them, the devil, that's like a jack in a box, you know, that I basically, you know, ripped out the clown and the spring and painted it. But the music box inside still works. So, you know, it's a musical neon piece. And the pumpkin, that's a like an old paper mache, you know, Halloween decoration. I think they actually used to put candles in those, believe it or not, even though they're made out of paper. And those flames were a little tricky because, you know, I didn't, you know, it was just bending, you know, without a pattern, but still trying to make it look like something. Like, usually if I'm doing without a pattern, I just kind of let it go wherever it wants to go. But this, I was really trying to sort of give it a certain shape. And then on the right is that piece probably started with the doll head, actually, which it fell off my shelf and the eyes became dislodged and fell out, like the eyeball mechanisms. It's kind of an old doll. So I was like, oh, I think those eyes need to glow with neon. So I made that. And the base is actually an old blender that I took apart, took the motor out and all the guts inside and the transformers in there. And then I just made a neon. I have several pieces that have that like kind of corkscrew shape to them. And the spring, it's like an old car spring that I just, you know, just got somewhere. Hey, what do you want for that rusty spring? $5? I'll take it, you know, and now it's in an art piece. So, and these are just a few more examples of how I use found objects with neon. Again, it's, you know, like that's a vintage dress form on the left that I just put some random shaped neon tubes in. And, you know, I use like some of the materials in what you're looking at here. You know, there's bones and beads and shells and bingo chips and coasters. So yeah, just like anything really has the potential to be put into an art piece, I think. And I joined the Philadelphia Dumpster Divers in 2018, and that's been really great. They're a group of artists. They've been around for over 30 years, and they all make artwork either with repurposed material or trash or found objects, and that's been good to connect with that group of artists. And we meet once a month and eat food and swap stuff. And that boneyard piece at the bottom, the little cubbies that the bones are in, I got the cubbies at a diver meeting one time. Okay, so this piece is actually going to be in the exhibit. And this piece started with a film reel. That's like the basic shape. I got a couple old film reels. And so that one, you know, it was a little challenging to bend because I wanted the neon to land like exactly right. So it went in between the little openings. And this piece, it's called What We Took for Granted. And the pictures that are in there are vintage photographs of people enjoying the outdoors. And when I was making this, I was just thinking about how, you know, the people in these photos probably never considered that, oh, maybe one day we won't, the air won't be clean, or our water, you know, could be contaminated, or there wouldn't be as many, you know, spaces outdoors to enjoy. And actually I filled it, it's clear tubing, but I filled it with a mix of argon gas, which is like a pale lavender, and neon, which is red. So it came out to this really nice pink color. But it won't last, because when you mix neon and argon in the same tube like that, eventually over time, the neon kind of takes over. I've already filled this a couple times, because the first time, you know, after it had been on for a certain amount of months, it was getting redder and redder and redder. So I had to process it. But I'm very excited to show this piece at the gallery. Oh, well, I figured I have to at least mention about my accidental doll collection. I never set out to collect dolls, but somehow here we are. And I get very mixed reactions when people come into my shop and see them. A lot of people think they're creepy. I think they're funny more than anything. And I also think about how a lot of them belonged to a little kid, and it was their beloved little baby that they used to pretend feed and, you know, take for walks. And now, you know, after years, you know, the eyes get weird and the hair is all crazy and they don't have clothes. And but so yeah, I just have this kind of collection of dolls next to my bending bench. But in sort of starting to gravitate towards dolls, I started collecting these bisque dolls. So let's see, next slide. So these pieces, these are these little vignettes that I make with these bisque dolls. And I've been working on these for a few years, kind of in between projects, and trying to, you know, get a large group of them. And then, you know, my goal is to just have a show with them all. But these, you know, these are all pretty small. Somebody asked about size. The one in the center in the top, like that actually, like the frame's kind of thick, but like the opening, that's maybe 5 by 7. So that was really hard to kind of get my hands in there and, like, you know, get everything like secured. But I start with vintage frames and I build them out into shadow boxes in the transformer. Like you won't see, most of the time you will never see a transformer. Like I always have them hidden. But I really like all these, and they, you know, they all have a story to tell, and the story usually just kind of evolves as I'm putting it together. Like the process is, you know, it's organic, where I might have like an object or two, you know, and sometimes I find a doll that fits in, or like the one down in the left with the green, that is just a fun, weird doll that is cemented into an old can. Like I got it that way. Like somebody was making some kind of folk art or something a long time ago, and now it's in this piece. So that's a lot of what I'm doing now. And then these are, I've also been doing a lot of these like doodles or scribbles, I call them. And these are just a chance for me to just, you know, get in the fires and just keep my skills sharp and, you know, play around. And they're all just loopy and free form. The one at the top, the blue one with all the loops, that is actually one of the larger pieces I made. That's maybe 2 feet by 3 feet. It's pretty large, and I made it and donated it to the National Liberty Museum. They have an auction every year to raise money. And so I donated for that. And that is actually six tubes of neon, and it has 3 small transformers in the back that power it. And that, it looks kind of like simple, but it was actually challenging to get all the pieces to lay out the way I wanted to and fill in all the negative space. But I do a lot of that. I see somebody's asking the tube diameter. Most of these are 10. And so I do, I use 8mm a lot. When I was working in sign shops, that's a lot of 13mm, 15mm. So again, you know, just trying to move away from, you know, what I was, had done for so long. So this is something else that takes up some of my time these days, which is the Neon Makers Guild. And I just want to mention it briefly. Something that's real important to me is keeping the craft of neon alive, and that people that are just getting into it have the resources they need to get, you know, information, and you know, that they really develop their skills. There are, you know, unfortunately, LEDs, which, you know, we all know what LEDs are, but a lot of people don't recognize that a lot of what you see that you think is a neon sign is actually not. It's LEDs, and it's plastic with little light diodes inside. And that the LEDs really, really hurt the neon industry. I mean, the neon industry has ebbed and flowed, you know, ever since it started, you know, in, you know, the 20s. But, you know, the LEDs are really hurting us, you know, so it's really important that neon doesn't become one of the many other things that used to be made by hand, but now machines have taken over. So the Neon Makers Guild, myself and 5 other neon makers, you know, we decided to start this organization. And so we've been around for a couple years, and, it's going pretty good. And so my hope is that, you know, it lasts for many years to come. But yeah, we're still, I like to think of it as a toddler. Like, we birthed it, and so now it's a toddler and starting to grow up a little bit. And we just bringing on some new board members. And so, yeah, so just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that because it's important to me. So this is like a highlight for me in my neon career so far, which is when I made a neon gift for Kurt Weill. And if you don't know who he is, he's a musician from Philly, and I was already a big fan of his. And then, as luck would have it, our kids ended up attending the same homeschooling co-op. So I asked his wife, I'm like, is it weird if I like make a gift? It's like a thank you. And she was like, no, he'd love it. So, so this is what I made, and the star is taken from the artwork of one of his albums, where his name is written out, and the dot to the I was this star. So I use that as the neon design, and then just mounted it. This piece is small; it's like 12 inches by 12 inches, and the little rusty gear thing that has no significance other than I thought it would look cool around the star. But if the one picture, you can see the side of the piece, and it's like sheet music. So I wanted to kind of make it personal to Kurt Weill. So he's a big Neil Young fan. So I started looking around, and I said, oh, Neil Young wrote a song called Philadelphia. Perfect. So I found the sheet music and printed it out, and then used it to, you know, decorate the edge. So he came to my studio and picked it up, and that was super fun. And the bottom picture there is a promo photo that the record company was using. And I squealed with delight when I saw that the neon was hanging in the background. So that's like, that is one of my highlights. So next slide. So this is just something fun. I'm almost done here. So just wanted to share my my playlist of neon songs. So actually, if you take your phone, you can scan that QR code, and it will take you over to my Spotify playlist. And I had the idea to make a mixtape of songs that mention neon, like, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I would make mixtapes, and I never got around to it, but I kept a list on paper. And then finally I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this thing. So it's like over 7 hours now, because
Well,
since it's like different genres. It's actually pretty fun. And I like most of this stuff on there. But now people actually like send me recommendations. My friend Morgan is always texting me like links to neon songs. And, it's like there's so many, there's songs that talk about dreams and love. And there's a lot that mention neon. That's how great neon is. People have to like sing about it. So I think I'm done. Next slide. Yeah. So, and then just, that's my info, and reach out. I love hearing from people. I love having visitors to my studio, and I love talking about neon, and I'm glad that I just had a chance to do that with you all, and very much looking forward to my show with Alissa. We're actually pals also. We already like know each other. So I'm super psyched to be having a show together.
Hey, Eve,
So,
before we move on, somebody has a question as to whether you do preparatory drawings before creating the works in neon.
sometimes it really kind of depends. And I do need a pattern for the neon, like the pieces with the dolls. And basically if it's flat and I can make a pattern, I will. And actually a lot of the things I do, the bending has to be pretty precise, because I'm fitting things together in a way that I might not have a lot of clearance, or just need to make sure that it's on the pattern. So when I plan it out, it all comes together. But the stuff that's kind of up in the air and free form, no, I just kind of roll with it and see where it takes me. So that's it. I'm done.
well, thank you. That was amazing. I feel like I learned a lot about your work. Like you said, we are friends already, and I know a lot about your work, but that was great. And I'm really excited about our show too. Actually, it was funny because when Danielle approached me and Eve about doing a 2-person show, we were already planning one. Like, I think that day I was writing up a proposal for me and Eve. So it was really great timing. And yeah, and also I love like coming out to Millville, and I'm super psyched to do this show. So my name's Alissa Eberle. I'm also a neon artist. I work full-time in a shop, Urban Neon, where Eve used to work as well, and though unfortunately we never worked together. So I make artwork and I work as a tube bender. So today I was out in the shop doing glasswork for 9 hours before this. So I love neon too. We can do this all day, all night. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a picture on the right of me bending neon at a workshop in Milwaukee. This person, Bill Booth, had neon workshops offered, and this is in 2010, and I couldn't find anywhere to learn neon. Eve mentioned neon schools. I saw a couple of those that were kind of like in Texas or something, and cost like $5,000, and they seem to be like going out of business. Like every week a different neon school would be missing, not around. So I went to this workshop. I had just moved to New Orleans and had become completely convinced I needed to become a neon bender. I wasn't even sure how it was made. I think maybe I thought a machine made it, but I was like, I gotta learn that. I think I just like biked by a sign shop and it just hit me like an epiphany. And I still have this letter. It's hanging above my computer right now. I don't have it on, but it's above me. So from that first weekend of learning to making my first sign, it was a really long time. I found a shop in New Orleans that would let me come in and practice 2 days a week. They're so nice. It was run by a guy named Todd Patton. He's in Arkansas now, but his shop was called Neomedics. And I practiced glass there for about a year. And from there's a bit of a lull in my learning. I was like working all over the country doing odd jobs and finally ended up in Philly. And it took me 2 years to secure a place to learn, which was Urban Neon. And I still work there. So I would work out in the shop during the day doing metal work and then would practice for an hour after work. And so this image on the left is of like a bad S. I just wanted to show some of the process of learning because I have pictures of it. Which looking at this glass is a color I think they just discontinued. Did you hear that, Eve? They discontinued.
No, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, that's unfortunately happening.
Yeah, you can see in the like in this image the burn marks. It's kind of like wonky. You know, I couldn't control the flame very well. The one I'm working on the right looks a little better. You can tell I'm pretty tired. I think this is summer after doing metal work all day, you know, and getting my practice in. So it was a few years of just doing that, practicing like an hour a day before I made anything that we pumped, processed and filled with the gas at the shop. So on the picture on the left is just a picture of all my practice stuff under my bench. And, you know, like that's how it is when you're learning, and you don't see this a lot. There's so much immediacy now with art. And people think it just kind of happens like, oh, you can learn this really quick. And it's just not like that. Or at least it wasn't for me. So
it's not like that. Yeah. It definitely is. It's years, really.
Yeah, it's like practice. A couple of years, and I would just practice every day. And I just loved working with the glass. So I was still making artwork. Originally, before I started working in glass, I was doing like large format photography and medium format, like color photography. I would still print in a color darkroom. But I started to kind of get frustrated with that medium. I'm not exactly sure why, but I would have the ideas and I couldn't figure out how to work them into photography. But the picture on the right is a picture of me doing welding. So in addition to like staying late and doing the neon, I started taking welding classes too. And I was learning metalwork. So it's just be like these like ridiculously long days of shop work, glass, and metalwork. And it was just a couple of years of that. And, you know, it was good though. I'm very happy that I put in that time. So was finally getting somewhere. It's funny, I don't really remember like making my name in this like weird Metallica font, but it, you know, I got it to that point. It was put together, and this picture on the right, you can see it cracked. So glass is just so frustrating to work with. I think you was mentioning this earlier, that you can work on something all day and even more than one day and have it just crack. And in my experience, the more you work on something, the more you're adding heat to it, it just creates more problems. Like once one thing goes wrong, it's just all downhill from there. So this is finally success of my name sign. And I put so many pictures of this up because like I was saying, it was so long that it took. You know, there are different ways that you can approach learning neon and glass work. While it was really frustrating to work so long practicing before I made anything, I'm not limited in any way to like having to use smaller millimeters of glass. You know, like Eve, I can bend any diameter up to 15 or 18. I haven't done anything larger than 18, but I'm pretty confident that, you know, I could do it. It doesn't come up very often. But my first job at the shop was a 15 millimeter letter. So that felt pretty good to be able to nail that. Traditionally, working with glass so thicker millimeter is more difficult. So finally, we're getting into some of my neon art. these are two pieces that I made that are based off of the laser photo backdrops that you might remember from the 80s and 90s from elementary school. They're life-sized. And the idea was to create objects that were remembered but never actually existed. Like the laser isn't an actual object, it's a photo rendering used in the school of photography. So I was actually like creating artworks for a long time with these in medium format film photography for like 10 years before I made these and got it out of my system. I was also curious to make something where the backdrop was the foreground. Just interested if people could identify them without the subject, like what the sort of connection was. But I found a lot of the themes that I was working with in photography translate really well into glass. And I really like how these look without a person or a subject in front of them. Decay is a theme that often comes up in my artwork. These are artworks inspired by like cracks in the wall with bricks showing through. I think about the passage of time a lot, especially as their city is experiencing such rapid change right now and building, and a lot of historic things are just getting bulldozed all over. And these neon artworks are kind of like echoes from the past.
I really love these brick ones.
Well, that's good because I'm going to have a special one, a very special one in our show. I've been working on a series of red-blue anaglyph 3D images. They're neons that work with 3D glasses. So 3D glasses are really cool. They trick the brain into seeing the image as 3D. And I just feel like it's really interesting to purposefully trick your brain into experiencing something that you know is not real, but you can still experience. It's kind of reminds me of like deja vu, where there's this mysterious quality to it, even if you know how it works. So I'm also interested in the Doppler effect, which is like a physics thing. When something moving towards you, the light waves get compressed and it'll appear blue, and when it's moving away, it will appear red at really high speeds. So I was like kind of like thinking about these ideas with this piece on the right, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be in our show in April. The design is based off of memories of etched glass from the early 80s and 90s. You might see a design like this in like a fancy bathroom at that time period. I like that it's familiar but kind of different. This piece is titled Burning the Candle at Both Ends. It was installed for the Hollow Center Light Windows 2021. They had installations all over. The Hollow Center is a nonprofit that works to like introduce people to the art of holography, which is like holograms. And it's really, really fascinating. I got very interested in holography a couple years ago and was super excited to participate in this, which was basically like light projects that were installed all over over the course of a weekend. And they had a map that was interactive, so you could go to different locations and view it from the outside. There's like 18 countries that did it, including one in, there's one in Antarctica, I guess. And I love stuff like that where it's interactive. People, you know, can participate virtually or in person. So this artwork is depicting a double-ended candle with like a glitchy candlestick middle. I wanted the stick part of the candle to look like sort of like lines on an old TV when you're not getting a signal properly. And I was thinking a lot about malfunction, overworking. I think at this time, a lot of us were questioning what productive meant, you know, as we kind of like redefined work during lockdown. This weekend definitely kicked off a really busy time for me though. So I definitely didn't learn anything from making this piece. So this is pictures of me in Skyline Caverns in Luray, Virginia. These are some of the inspiration pictures from my Electric Caverns installation, which is on view at Urban Glass right now in their window gallery until March 8th. There are a lot of show caves in that area, as they're called. And I think this is probably my favorite one. I stopped here on my way to moving to Philly from New Orleans. And I've been back a few times. A lot of these show caves have like colored lights. Luray Caverns even has like a organ built into it. And I just love these very surreal environments that are like augmented. Like they're already bizarre and they have these like man-made elements that they add. And I don't know, I find these environments very inspiring. It's an intersection between like human and natural world that I just love. So here are some pictures of my Electric Caverns installation. These images are from Hotbed Gallery. But again, this is on view at Urban Glass in Brooklyn. So this is a full room installation with sound. So if you do get a chance to go to Brooklyn, you get to hear the full installation. I'm really excited to do more installations with sound. I love the way it interacts with neon. So this installation is inspired by show caves, motel theme rooms. Like there's a specific theme room at the Feather Nest Motel in Cherry Hill that the decor was just, it's incredible. I highly recommend. But also the passage of time and the intersection between the manufactured and natural world. Kind of like picturing a melting of the upper and lower worlds of tourism too. It's like neon and caves and just this very surreal environment. So this is all different millimeters of glass. The stalagmites are 15 mil. The back piece is 10 mil. The sink faucet is 8, and then the top ones are 12. And some of the other elements in it are like horticultural flooring and glass slag crystals that were found in like railroad tracks and in rivers and stuff like that. So it was just all different elements that are natural and man-made. So after I did the Electric Caverns installation, I was chosen to be artist in residence at Petrified Forest National Park. And I was really excited because it's the only national park in the country that has a historic section of Route 66 running through it. And, you know, as a neon artist, this was a really cool opportunity for me to get to honor that connection. And I think a lot of the times too, I've applied for national park residencies before, and a lot of times they choose like a painter, a landscape painter. So I was excited that they kind of went out of the comfort zone and I got to enjoy Petrified Forest. There's no camping or lodging in the park. They have like one casita, which the artist in residence stays at. So I was like out there in the park alone, and it was very, very cool. I had to get special permission to shoot photos at night, and I was completely alone. So the concept with this artwork was to do long exposures of blacklight neon puddles. So this is essentially like blacklight neon tubing that I formed into like puddle shapes that I put in different places in the park where there's petrified wood, like this piece on the right, that's a structure built of petrified wood. And the neon puddles would interact with the wood, and some of the petrified wood has phosphorescent minerals in it, so it glows under black light. So there's this really wonderful interaction between the neon and the petrified wood. And I really liked the idea of using these like puddle shapes because all of the petrified wood was created by water. So petrified wood is like not actually wood, it's kind of like a stone. And it's created when logs and wood were like submerged in water and mud. So it was kind of like echoes of the past and sort of interactions between different time periods. So this is another piece of the neon blacklight puddles interacting with the wood. It's a little hard to tell, but up above that smaller puddle, that glowing is just the petrified wood itself, just glowing under blacklight. So another piece that I made during this residency was this one up on the upper left. I had to get really creative about where to bend glass because obviously there isn't a neon studio at Petrified Forest National Park. So I contacted Monica and Jude at Ignite Sign Art Museum in Tucson, and they were so nice. They let me drive down there and bend glass for a day. And Steve Justin there processed the glass for me. This artwork is a neon rendition of a famous mountain formation in the Blue Mesa section of the park. So it's a badland, but it's like a really particular color, like different colored badland. And this piece is on display at the Parks Visitor Center still. So the blacklight pieces and this piece were just sort of different ways of honoring the park, and it was different renderings. Next slide. So this is a video. These artworks are from a video synthesis residency that I did last spring with the Sound Museum Collective here in Philly. It was a great opportunity. It was a 10-week program focusing on learning video synthesis and analog video mixing that culminated in a performance and exhibition. So video synthesizers, if you're not familiar, are able to create patterns and a bunch of different visual material without camera input. Or they can distort live imagery. So you can play it live, and it has oscillators like an audio synthesizer. So I was like really excited to learn about this process. It's kind of having a moment right now. And I'd become really interested in combining video and neon, and then wanted to learn about video synthesis. So this artwork on the left, the video that's playing, is a collaborative video piece created during this residency. The piece was made by Kat Nzinga, Pony P, and myself. So the final exhibition included a sound performance by Kat, the infinity mirror artwork on the right, and this video artwork. So the mirror that's in the infinity mirror is also the mirror that we used in the video. And that's another like thing that's shown up in my artwork over the years. There are these kind of like faux marble mirrors from the early 90s. And I was like doing photography stuff with them in the early 2000s, but I knew I wanted to use them, but I wasn't sure how. And making this infinity mirror and video piece, it felt really like satisfying to kind of get it out of my system or make the artwork that I had kind of envisioned all this time. So we created the video artwork, layering different imagery that we had all worked on, and then mixing it with feedback with an analog video mixer and recording it on a CRT. And it was my first experience using video in art. Even though I have a background in photography, I've always been very intimidated by video. And we had the video projected to reflect into the mirror, and the viewers walked between the mirror and the video to enter the space. And we titled the piece Within, and it was focusing on themes of memory realms and the body, so it worked really well. Also love the colors that we got in the video. when you're working with feedback in a mixer, some of the effects are uncontrollable. So you get really amazing things, but you can't recreate them exactly. So I was like happy that this kind of came out color-wise very similar to the mirror. And that's kind of a weird color choice for me. I don't usually use yellow. As I say it has a bunch of yellow in the video. I usually use like pinks and blues a lot in my artwork. These are two more artworks. This is a broken window and a broken heart-shaped mirror. And I like thinking of these pieces as still fulfilling the role of illumination or reflection despite being broken. Again, I use this color combo a lot of pink and blue, especially with the pieces that depict broken glass. I use a clear glass with argon and a little bit of mercury. And that pale blue has almost like ethereal quality to it that I really like. So this is me like 2 weeks ago. I am in the process of setting up my shop for the first time. So this is going to be in West Philly, where I live. And yeah, I'm really, really excited. So that's kind of, besides our show, this is my other kind of big project right now, is figuring out all the details to do that. But you know, luckily I have Eve and she's been very helpful with this process. So yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, so that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Melissa and Eve. And we will happily take a couple of questions from the audience. There's already a few in the chat, which I will read to you. Katie Murphy's asking, would love to hear more from both artists about advice they give to people who want to get into neon. Along those lines, for Danielle, what advice she'd give to artists who want to exhibit in her gallery or in a gallery in general? Another question, love to hear more about the parallels in the artist's work, thinking about Alyssa's neon brick work and the changing city landscape, and Eve collecting objects from the past. So there's a few different questions. I'll keep it open, and yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
I would say if somebody's wanting to get into neon, first I would wonder where they lived, because if you live in a place like New York City or something like that, there are options for classes. And then if you're in Philly, Eve is offering workshops. But I have had really good success with just walking into a neon shop. I am very shy about that type of thing, but both shops that I just walked in person, they looked at me like I had 3 heads and seemed annoyed, but then eventually was able to get, you know, a place to learn out of it. So I think that that's like a better impression than sending an email, because even just coming in person shows that you're more serious.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, I would agree that, you know, if you're really serious, then you need to be persistent and just keep trying. It's true, there aren't as many sign shops around anymore to even approach about learning. And I think nowadays, a lot of people are basically setting up neon torches and trying to teach themselves or take a few classes somewhere. One thing, though, is that you really need to have access to practice, and that probably is why a lot of people are buying torches and trying to learn that way, because it, you know, there's a lot of things that somebody can try and learn. But if you aren't doing it regularly, you know, you're not, it's neon's already hard as it is. You know, if you bend a little bit and then don't for a few months and then, you know, try and pick it up again, you know, it's really challenging. So probably, you know, just be patient and persistent, and reach out to people. I mean, neon, has a reputation for being a real guarded industry as far as knowledge. And to some extent, I would agree with that in the past, although my personal experience was very welcoming. Like usually people were pretty happy to share, but now, so even more, the people who make neon are reaching out to those who want to learn, and trying to help them, in whatever way, that might be. But location is definitely can play a factor. And yeah, just you got to be able to keep it going, however that might be.
Thank you. I have another one in the Q&A now from Alan, I think Birchfield, Knoxville, Tennessee. He's talking about how expensive glass tubes are now, and he's asking about the impact of the rise in glass prices on how you work in terms of doing sign bending work and that sort of thing, or even commissions on your own work.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, even just getting the supplies. Like the quality of the glass has gone down too. It's more expensive, and they're discontinuing a lot of really basic colors. Like we just had a large discontinuation of 6500 temperature white, which is standard white. So as a person that does work in a sign shop, we get tons of stuff that we have to remake for other sign shops doing repairs and whatnot. When I mean repairs, I mean remaking a neon unit. And it's a challenge. Like the prices go up, it's hard to pass that on to people. But also there is a lot of interest in neon now that didn't exist before. So I think people do understand that it's a very special thing. So, it's just, if you can explain it to people, they usually are pretty receptive to it.
I think I was hearing one of you talk about that kind of, I think maybe it was Eve talking about this curiosity and like not really even understanding that it was like a thing done by a human hand.
Yeah.
And maybe it is, I'm kind of seeing neon becoming very popular among kind of like contemporary art, kind of across disciplines. And I am seeing, I think, more kind of like commercial applications coming into popularity. Do you see that too? Do you see people kind of having like more of a kind of popular understanding of the material? Like people know that this is like a craft and a skill that's done by human hands and not by a machine?
I think it goes both ways. Like it's become more popular, and then there's become more, as Eve mentioned, fake neon around. So some of it people realize that it's glass, and that every neon sign that's real neon has been handmade by a person, and that's incredibly special. Like even a beer sign, but because there is this sort of like fake neon showing up around, I think it is that people don't know, because they're being sold stuff that's not neon as neon. But I think there's.
I just want to comment to that unfortunately, the LED companies, they market their product as neon. They call it neon. They don't make that distinction all the time. So people they don't even know, because they're basically being misled in what they're buying. So that's definitely a problem, I think.
We have another question from Katie, and I have a similar question, so I'm going to combine both of our questions into one question. Katie's asking about the community of neon artists and how you support one another. And I'm kind of so interested in these like glass microcosms, to those in the audience that don't know, like glass art world and like neon art world aren't always the same world. And there's like a little bit of overlap, but maybe not as much as we would want. And then maybe like hardcore neon sign bending world might not be the same as like neon art world. So can you talk a little bit about like what these distinct worlds are and how you kind of navigate them, and then maybe talk a little bit about your community, like your community, and how you support one another.
I think for me, I have only recently become involved in the neon community. And it's been great. And I wish I had done that earlier. But just learning in the shop and making my own art, I was just sort of doing it alone. And I don't know, it's been really supportive. Like, you know, it's such a specialized thing, and it is such a big part of my life. It's great to be around people that are interested in the same thing that you are, and just the resources too. I've found it very helpful, and just it's been great. And I think I'm kind of an outsider to the larger glass world, but I feel like there's more of an overlap that's happening between the neon world and sort of larger glass community right now. I see kind of neon people getting into glass and glass people getting more into neon, and it seems really cool. You know, it's nice to see.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, my experience has been, you know, that everybody, you know, that I've communicated with, and I guess that's usually through Instagram. Instagram seems to have brought people together that way. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, especially in neon, you know, we really just want to support one another, just to keep it alive. And so, like I mentioned, the Neon Makers Guild earlier, like that was a main motivation for starting that group, was really because there aren't a lot of resources for neon. And a lot of us are, you know, like I work alone in my shop, you know, and Alissa was just saying, you know, she works alone, and a lot of us neon makers, you know, we're just doing it by ourselves. So being, you know, just, I guess, you know, in this age of being able to connect over Zoom and Instagram, you know, like I have, you know, I'll send glass out to a, you know, I sent some tubing out to Wyoming, you know, to a tube bender out there who was looking for a specific color. And I'm going to send some electrode housings down to another friend, you know, who was looking for something specific. Um, and I love the overlap of neon with other glass mediums. So yeah, I guess, you know, just reach out and ask for support and share your knowledge.
All right, I have one more question for the group before we pass it back to Pam. Can you three maybe talk a little bit more about I guess like the curatorial vision for the exhibition that y'all are working on, or maybe what some of the projects are going to be, or some of the challenges? Just interested to hear a little bit about what we have to look forward to.
Well, I think Alissa, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think you articulate well how our work is similar.
Yeah.
If you
I
want
think
to talk about that.
sure. Yeah. We came up with the title for the show Double Vision because we were thinking, you know, while we both work in neon, kind of like with Double Vision, you have these overlaps where things kind of come together, but also where it's like diverges a bit. And I think a lot of the stuff that Eve and I do has like similar themes, but our process is different. And I find that conversation very interesting. We both like work with memory and the past, but her way of working with it is incorporating objects, whereas I've been kind of focusing on more like decay and structure and stuff like that. So I am excited to see how we pull it all together. We have pieces picked out, and we're kind of talking about the conversations between them, but we're, you know, kind of deciding that still.
thank you so much for answering the questions. Thanks so much for the talk. Thanks for spending your Thursday evening with us. I'm going to pass the program back to Pam.
I'm going to echo what Alex just said. Thank you so much for sharing all this information about your work, especially right before this exhibition, so we can enter the gallery with all this information already behind us. I think this is a really great primer for that. As we conclude, I encourage everybody to continue to learn about the artists by visiting either their websites or their Instagram, which the handles are here on the screen. And if you would like these to be sent to you after the program, you can email me and I'll send you their Instagram handles as well. Be sure to register for our next Wheaton conversation. The program will be with Richard Robinson Jr. and Ira L. Bond. They will be discussing visualizing ancestral connections, and they will join us on Thursday, March 21st at 6 p.m. I'd love to hear from those who are new to this series or to Wheaton Arts. Feel free to contact me with any questions or comments you may have. Also, feel free to download the chat and to reach out to me through email, and I'll provide you with a text if you need it. I thank you so much for being here, and I hope you join us for future programs. Thank you, everybody, for all your efforts in preparing for this. It was wonderful.
Thanks for having us. It's
Yeah,
been great.
thanks so much.
Our pleasure. Have a great night. Bye, everybody.